guys, this is Rich. Welcome to another episode of A Diver's Life. In the last episode, we introduced you to Indonesia, the Coral Triangle, and the Indonesia through flow, and how this pertains to Raja Ampat. Today, I want to help you prepare for the trip. One of the things that struck me about diving in this beautiful location is the inability of the liveaboards to prepare you to dive Raja Ampat. And I'm not talking about what outlets and other amenities they have on the boat, or when they are going to pick you up at your hotel. Diving Raja Ampat is not like diving parts of the Caribbean, where you have 100+ feet of viz, simple drift dives, or easy wall dives on the west coast of Bonaire, where the difficulty you experience is limited by dive operations due to the capabilities of other divers on the boat. What saddened me was the number of divers who, after a couple of dives, were asking ahead of time if there was current, and if there was, bailed on the dive. As divers, we always need to assess our abilities before taking a dive. That said, it was troubling to see people come all the way around the world to one of the most beautiful diving destinations on the planet, only to sit in their stateroom for half the trip. Let me try to help you have a lot more fun and get excited about taking some of those dives. Raja Ampat is in the middle of the Indonesian through flow, which pushes a large volume of water from the Pacific Ocean through Raja Ampat and onto the Indian Ocean. As a result, you get a big diversity of fish and coral, but you also get less visibility in currents. Visibility is more in the range of 30 feet. Fish like current, and they like the food it brings. In fact, as you will see, the amount of fish can reduce your visibility too. So before you go, let's cover some key topics to get you ready. First, get yourself in good mental and physical shape. The best thing for this is just to go to a pool and work on some distance swimming. If possible, get some dives in within the last 6 months before you go. Work on your buoyancy. Don't be one of those people who constantly inflates and deflates their BC to stay neutral. Make sure you are comfortable in diving in 2 to 3 knots currents, even if it is a year before you go. Dive both into and with the current. In short, get some experience so you are not surprised and are more comfortable doing it. Knowing that you have already done it and can do it is half the battle. Make sure you're comfortable with the 30 feet of visibility. For many of you, that is a lot, but if you are used to diving in 60+ feet of viz, it could be a problem. Make sure you have some layovers on your way to Raja Ampat and get some rest. Bring or buy some affordable safety devices. Bring a large surface marker buoy, or SMB, for both you and your buddy. These are also called safety sausages. Bring a finger reel to attach your SMB. Make sure the line is attached to the reel and not just wound on. If you're comfortable using the reel, you should deploy it at 15 meters or 50 feet and make sure it is also attached to the SMB. The benefit of deploying early is that you get your SMB visible by the support boat early, and it allows you to be seen by boat traffic when you are ascending. Inflate the SMB and slowly let it rise to the surface while holding the spool. However, if your reel gets stuck or won't unwind, then just ascend and deploy the SMB on the surface after a safety stop. If you are able to deploy both the line and SMB, stay under the SMB until you reach the surface. Stay close to the SMB. Boats may be overhead. Between dives, make sure your line is not knotted up so that you can deploy. Simply unwind and rewind the line. Bring a power inflator, scuba horn. Bring or buy a reef hook to be able to be stationary in high current. You can usually buy one of these on the boat. Now, I would like to show you some of the examples of these devices. Okay, I want to talk about some really important safety devices that you really need to bring with you to Raja Ampat. One of them is a surface marker buoy. This is a surface marker buoy that I would recommend. It's large. It's made by Dan, and it's very, very large. It has reflective tape on one side. Essentially, you take one end of this thing, you fill it up with your regulator, and you can deploy it to the surface. Okay? They have other kinds. Here's one that is made by Hollis that actually has 2 colors. You can see how this gets wrapped up, and you can have either the bright yellow or the bright orange, and they both can be seen very well on the surface. All right. And this one actually has a purge valve where you can dump it as well. But you really want to get this out there when you deploy it. You want to make sure that it's filled and you're at the surface and this is way above the water so they can see you. They make some inexpensive ones that are a lot smaller, but it's like waving a diaper in the water. You really don't want to signal a boat with a diaper. Get something with reasonable size. So if you have a meter waves or something like that out there, if the wind picks up, we didn't really see that when we were out there, but if you do, you want to be seen. Also, this is the finger reel. This actually attaches to the surface marker buoy, and you can clip it to your vest. And this allows you, when you get in the water, you can basically unhook these clamps that I have here, and you can deploy it to the surface. Right? I think you should have a horn. This actually fits between your inflator hose, all right, and your inflator button. And so this would plug into the hose. This goes into the button portion of that. And it's an air horn. It makes a lot of noise. You're definitely going to hear this on the surface, so it's a good thing to have. And last, if people have not gone to places like Raja Ampat or Palau, places where you have high current, there are times when you're in the middle of the dive that you want to be stationary in the middle of your dive and you want to watch what's going by. So they make this thing called a reef hook. Reef hook, basically, I'm going to take this apart here 1 second, and it deploys. All right, you're going to hook one end onto your buoyancy compensator D-ring, and the other part you hook in the reef. I wasn't very comfortable using this because I worried about damaging the reef, so I used it. I think it maybe used it one time when we were in Raja Ampat, and I tried to find a piece of dead coral to do that, which was also hard because Raja Ampat is actually absolutely incredible. The other part you put on your BC. One of the things, a big thing about D-rings, I do not like plastic D-rings because they can break. The sun wears them out and they go bad. It's good to have metal D-rings. But I think we paid maybe $25 for this on the boat. It's a great device. It works super. You just put it in, inflate your BC a little bit, and you'll be floating right above the reef, and you'll see this in actually one of the videos where someone is using it. So these are the safety devices you should take to Raja Ampat. I think you'll find them very useful, and I believe that most of the dive operations there will expect you to have one with you, each one of these with you. Make sure that you have some that are in really good working order. Gear preparation. Given that this is such a long trip, most of you will probably rent gear. However, you're in a very remote area and don't want to have your gear fail. Here are some tips to prep, but not for camera gear. Make sure your regulators are in good service working order. Make sure your hoses don't have cracks in them. People who service your regs often don't look at your hoses. If they have any cracks at all or are coming loose at the end, replace them immediately. Make sure your fin, knife, and mast straps are not cracked. If they are, replace them. You might consider taking spares. I recommend nitrox for repetitive dives. Make sure your dive computer is operational and can support nitrox. Make sure your dive computer has spare batteries, and make sure the one in your computer is fully charged. If you have rechargeable batteries, bring spares and a charger that will work in the outlets that are there. If you have a wireless tank pressure transmitter, bring a spare battery and bring an analog pressure gauge to replace it just in case it completely fails. Make sure your BCs have no leaks. Bring a portable surge protector, preferably one that converts all input to 60 Hertz and 110 volts. All computers will plug into 220 and 115 volts. If you have a USB device, make sure it has USB ports too. Make sure your SMBs and finger reels are in good working order, and also that your SMBs are not so faded they can't be easily seen. Let's talk about diving in current. Understand and remember the dive briefing instructions. Keep the dive guide and your buddy in sight. Pay attention to the briefing and ask questions. Remember the turning points from the briefing. When is the dive guide going to turn to get into or out of the current? If it is a negative entry, it means you have no air in your BC and get down as fast as possible to limit your exposure to the current and get to the point on the wall you need to be. Listen to when your dive guide thinks you should deploy your reef hook so that you can anticipate it during your dive. Raja Ampat has over 1,500 islands. You will be diving around islands, submerged pinnacles, and seamounts. What shoulder of your body is facing these throughout the dive? Often, you start your dive where the current splits along the wall. Know which shoulder should be along the wall once you start to swim. You don't want to swim in the wrong direction. Look for the dive guide to signal turning points. He may change the dive plan due to current shifts. Think. If you're going against a strong current and get ahead of the dive guide, look back to see if he changes direction. Some may not keep up. If you have been doing all that swimming, it may be an easier time for you than others. I had to do this one time. When you swim into a current, point your hands forward and make like an arrow to reduce your resistance. Constantly monitor your buoyancy and gauges and adjust. Don't be overinflated in an opposing current. You become a sail, and that makes it harder to swim. If the current shifts, look from where you expect it on your descent. Get the wall in front of the current as soon as possible. If the current shifts while you are on the wall, check with the dive guide. He's either going to keep going in that direction, and you might have a shorter dive, or he may reverse direction. If he decides to abort, stay with him. He knows where to go. Be on the lookout for larger fish and larger schools of fish. They love current, and so will you. Dive guides. They are not all created equal. Most dive guides are great, but in Raja Ampat, dive guides paid no attention to tanks that came out of BCDs. You are riding to a dive site in your inflatable rib with your tank hanging over the side and bouncing in the waves. They are more likely to come loose. I had multiple incidents where I needed to help put the tank back in someone's cam strap. Some take off and don't pay attention to you. Be self-reliant. Dive guides don't ask you to show your gauge or check your buoyancy. Also remember the dive plan in case the dive guide disappears from sight, even if it's only for a short while. Most but not all dive guides point things out. Research what to look for. If you ask for help, they will help you, but don't expect them to be looking for issues that you and your buddy should be responsible for. What is consistent is the dive guides all know where they need to go. Their job is foremost to guide the dive and to make sure they get to the exit point safely. Rest assured they know their way. Notice what your dive guide is wearing. When we went, each dive guide had a yellow tank. There were 3 groups with 1 dive guide each. The problem comes when your guide tries to speed through a dive and runs into the other groups. Knowing the tank color is not enough to know which guide is yours. If you are a little uncomfortable, find a dive master instructor in your group who is there on vacation too, and stick with them if you can. There were some great ones on our trip. If you have concerns, be respectful and speak up. Help them do a better job for you. What to do if you lose sight of your group. If you do not feel you can reach them, do not panic. If you're not sure what to do in the situation, signal your buddy you want to go up. Detach your finger line and S&B from your BCD. Follow the procedure discussed earlier for deploying your S&B and descending. Execute your ascent with your buddy and reel the line in as you ascend. Do a safety stop. Once you are on the surface, get the attention of the support boat and press your horn and hold the bottom of your S&B down so it sticks right up out of the water. Wait until they arrive. The surface teams were awesome. With this knowledge in hand, let's take a look at the excerpts of some dives we took to see how they were planned and what it looked like underwater. If you come out of this feeling it is not so bad or that you need to work on a few things, then we've made some progress. Let's get wet.
For our first dive site, we will go to Gorgonian's Pass. Although the site has current, it is an easy dive with beautiful gorgonians along the wall and a very nice coral garden. We will drop in up current where the island is in the direct path of the flow of water. The dive boat places us at this point as the current will hit the wall and form a split current. The diver will not experience any current at the split. You can see the drop point at the far right of the dive plan map with the rectangle showing where the current is blocked. We will follow the wall on our right shoulder. As we move farther away from the split, we will enter the current and use it to carry us along a wall of large gorgonians and soft corals. As we approach the end of the island, the dive guide will keep his shoulder to the right, effectively turning at the end, allowing the island to block the current. This is shown as a yellow rectangle on the left side of the dive plan map. From here we will ascend to a beautiful sheltered shallow reef protected by the island. This is a very easy dive and the current does much of the work for you, and the drop point and the exit have virtually no current. In almost all the dives in Raja Ampat, you can expect a shallow reef at the end that is spectacular. Here we see Doreen at the drop point taking pictures where the current splits. There is virtually no current. As we turn into the current, we see this beautiful soft coral bent over from the water flowing along the wall. We will ride this current along the wall in the direction that the soft coral is pointing. This whip coral shows the current is picking up and we are along for a ride. Here we fly past these beautiful soft corals billowing in the current. And now we see the beautiful gorgonians. They are enormous. Staying on our right shoulder, we see the soft corals are not bent over so much. We must be entering the far side of the island. Our friend Linda points to her husband Mike. No current. With the island blocking the current, we see the sea fans are no longer bent over, and just to the right of the sea fan we see a beautiful clown triggerfish. Here we see a barramundi grouper. These fish are very shy and don't stick around long. This is a pair of orange-banded coralfish. This is called Linda's flatworm. Here is a polyclad flatworm. Suddenly, it's bumpheads. Bumpheads show us the way to the top of the shallow reef, protected by the island, reflected upon the surface of the water. Stretching before us is the magical coral garden shared with us in the dive briefing. Magic. And look, a young giant clam. Our next dive will be on Puri Pinnacle. Puri Pinnacle is a submerged peak. Almost any time you dive a submerged peak, you'll be doing what is called a negative entry. A negative entry means you want to spend no time on the surface and you are going to go straight down. If you get into the water and you have air in your BC, dump it fast and head straight down and work to get behind the structure that will block the current. On a submerged pinnacle, you have no immediate structure to block the current, so you must try to get down to a structure to do that. Knowing this makes many divers anxious. Know that in almost every case, the dive operation has accurately assessed the current and will move you to a place that they feel is safe. So enjoy yourself. In this dive plan, we're going to do a negative entry down to a pinnacle structure that blocks the current, and we head right to the main structure of the pinnacle. We will then swim, keeping our left shoulder to the wall of the pinnacle, which blocks the current. Fish love current, so they love pinnacles and seamounts. Here we encounter a massive school of puri, which means baitfish. This is a school so large it blocks much of the light from the sun. Puri seem to form the funnel of a tornado. Baitfish means food for larger fish that also love submerged pinnacles as fish congregate there. Although it is dark, the dive guide spots mobile rays down deep. I quickly swim down to 115 feet or 35 meters to get the shot. Unfortunately, my nitrox mixture forces me to limit my depth, but they are gorgeous even though I can't get close. Now coming in is this seemingly endless school of trevally, no doubt wanting to target the puri. On our next dive, we're going to dive Magic Mountain, also called Shadow Reef. Magic Mountain is also a higher current area. The surface team has found that the current is not strong at all, but it can change at any time. Magic Mountain rises up to a more level surface and then trails out to the west. We are going to do a rapid negative entry and drop behind the south end, which will block the current and swim out to the west lower peak. If the current picks up and we are unable to get behind the mountain, we will be pushed off and need to ascend and deploy our SMB. For this reason, a number of people chose to skip the dive. The more you prepare, the more confident you will be, and the less likely you will be to sit out this beautiful dive. Once we are down and behind the protection of the seamount, we are in good company with angelfish and this bumphead wrasse. Here we find a beautiful bald anemone that is licking the food off its fingers, and standing guard are these beautiful anemone fish. Up above the reef is a school of big-eye snapper that is swimming but not making any progress. We can be assured that above the reef the current is slowly starting to pick up. Don't just watch the coral, watch the fish. A Titan triggerfish is feeding on the coral surrounded by two Moorish idols. Here we see an emperor angelfish, and more Moorish idols, and now hundreds of Moorish idols. A manta arrives out of the blue to visit a cleaning station on the seamount. But he leaves as quickly as he arrives. In the distance, we see a gray reef shark. Sharks love current. The current has arrived. This clownfish fights to stay in place on this anemone. Now we swim up to the top of the mountain. Big-eye snapper point into the current to reduce drag, and swimming to stay in place. Finally, we reach the top of Magic Mountain and deploy our reef hooks to enjoy the view and blow off some nitrogen. On the next dive, we head to Black Rock. Here there was virtually no current. We could pretty much pick a drop spot anywhere, so we chose to drop down on the far side and circle around the island on the wall and finish up in the spectacular shallow reef to be picked up near the exposed rock. We drop down and find a beautiful hard coral garden. At the top, we see a solitary sweetlips whose vibrant colors contrast the reef. Dropping down the wall, we see a number of varieties of healthy coral, including a beautiful leather coral and stacks of lettuce coral forming a Christmas tree. A couple of beautiful coral grouper stand in as ornaments. The magic continues with a bright pink gorgonian. Nestled within is a Bargabanti pygmy seahorse. This large sea fan is dotted with glassfish. This shivering stream of glassfish seems ethereal. Hidden in a sea fan is Denise's pygmy seahorse. The range of colors is incredible. Below we see a small school of trevally. Here we have a majestic red sea sponge. Heading up the wall we pick up more leather coral. Here we have a beautiful dense mound of coral. Azure damselfish love to form small groups. Check out this antler coral. We have reached the shallow coral reef. Dense coral comes alive with damselfish and anthias. Triangular angelfish moves to avoid the light. Clownfish and a three-spot dactylus use the anemone for protection. This barramundi grouper wants nothing of me. Check out this enormous bumphead parrotfish. Now this is what I call coral. Fields of hard and soft coral spread out before us. With this knowledge in hand and some work, you will be ready to go to Raja Ampat. In our next episode, we will finish our tour through the islands of Mosul and get up close and personal with a reef manta. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like it and hit the subscribe button to see more on this channel.